Hey everybody, it's Alison Heikkila. Thanks so much for joining me today. My card today can definitely be considered Halloween, but I know plenty of people that would like this all year round. I actually got the idea from my bestie, Amber. So I'm going to be using the Cauldron set stencil from A Colorful Life Designs, along with the What a Splash stencil from A Colorful Life Designs. The What a Splash is also a two-piece set. It comes with the mask that coordinates with it. And that just came out this month. We're going to do a slimline card, which is something that I don't do very often, but I thought with the layout that I wanted for this card that would work best. I had the measurements up on the screen there because I never really remember what they are. I typically use just A2 sized cards, occasionally a 5x7, so I always need to write down what I'm doing for a slimline. I'm going to start with my Cauldron, and I have some glossy black embossing paste. This is not available anymore, but I am going to link one below. The Crafter's Workshop definitely has a glossy black paste that you can use instead of this particular one that I'm using. You'll see here that I kept it super textured. I don't know about your cauldrons, but my cauldrons are all very textured. So I definitely wanted to keep mine that way too. Look at how shiny that is. I love that. So the What a Splash stencil is wider than my Cauldron is. So I'm using this piece of scrap paper to just line up the edge of the Cauldron with kind of where the liquid is kind of bumping out. And I'm just going to cut a piece of that off so that I have some of it blocked off. I wanted to make sure that it didn't go past the edge of the Cauldron. And that's going to work out just perfectly, just so that we can kind of fix the stencil, in a nice, easy way. It's just scrap paper. You'll also notice that at the top, it doesn't go to the top of the card, but we're going to work on that too. So right now I am taping down, or I'm trying to tape down, that stencil so that it's right at the lip of the Cauldron. And, it takes just a moment to do, but it's well worth it in the end because you don't want that stuff to shift on you. I add a little bit at the top, and I'm going to add a little bit to that piece of copy paper as well. I have my Twisted Citron Distress Oxide. I love this color. It's not going to be quite as vibrant as it normally would because we're working on a piece of gray cardstock. But I am going to add some fun stuff to it to make it a little bit more interesting in the end. So I'm just using my mini ink blending tool to apply that Twisted Citron to the open areas of the stencil. And I'm going to be very careful to not go up past the stencil line there. Again, we're going to extend that liquid, whatever this stuff is. What do you guys think this stuff is? I don't know. It's some kind of crazy goop. I hope it's a good spell and not a bad spell. So I'm just taking the washi tape off of the stencil, and I'm just going to extend that line up so that the liquid pours up past the card edge. Or explodes out. I'm not sure. Is it being poured in or is it coming out? So the washi tape stuck to my card a little bit too much, so I'm using my mono sanding eraser just to kind of fix it up a little bit. It's not perfect, but I'm going to wind up inking a bit on top of it just to kind of mask it off a little bit more. I flipped over my stencil after I cleaned it, and I decided that I wanted to add a few more splashes coming out of that cauldron. So I guess because it's splashing out, that then something was being put into it. Right? Or maybe something landed in there. I don't know. You guys can let me know in the comments what you think is happening. Is something getting poured in or is something splashing out? Or maybe it's both. Am I rambling? I feel like I'm rambling. Sorry, guys. So there's that Twisted Citron on there. I'm adding a couple more little doodads here and there. Here you can see I'm adding some right on top of where I needed to use that sand eraser just to mask it off a little bit. So I have some clear lime embossing powder from Stampendous. It's from the Summer Shine embossing kit. And I am just adding a little bit. It looks like a lot, but it's really not too much. Distress oxides have that pigment property to them, so they stay wet a bit longer than a regular dye ink would. They don't stay as wet as like a full-on pigment, but they work well for embossing if you need to. But I did not want to cover the whole thing. I just wanted it kind of here and there. I wanted some nice texture, some nice shine, but not overdone and even because this is splashing. And, if you think about water or whatever splashing, then it's not really even, right? So this is going to make it look really cool. So I'm using my embossing gun to melt that fabulous powder. And it's still going to be green, but some of it's shiny and some of it's not. It looks kind of distressed and it's kind of cool. I decided that I wanted to add a little bit more something something. So I went back to the Cauldron set stencil, and I'm using Salvaged Patina to add some of those circles. They could be bubbles or whatever. So we're going to wind up using Villainous Potion Distress Embossing Glaze on top of that. You might be saying, well, why wouldn't you just use Villainous Potion ink then, or Oxide? Because I wanted it to be kind of not perfect, right? So I wanted some of that Salvaged Patina to show through. And I thought that if I went in with the Villainous Potion, it would be super duper dark purple, especially because we're working on top of gray cardstock, and it might not read as purple. But I also didn't want to do white because I didn't want it to be super bright purple. So I thought that the Salvaged Patina was going to be a cool way to kind of add a little bit more color that's subtle and make sure that the Villainous Potion embossing glaze would still read as purple. So that's what we're doing. So I'm just using a piece of scrap paper to dump that back into my jar so that I don't spill it everywhere, because I have a habit of doing that. So now, as you can see, I'm heating that up, and you can still see some of that salvage kind of peeking through. And I think it looks really cool because it's, you know, bubbles have different colors in them. And I think it's fun. And I love Twisted Citron and Villainous Potion together. So now I've got some stamps. I've got Fangtastic Friends and the Fangtastic Friends add-on. If you know me, you know I'm obsessed with bats. And when these sets came out, I was super duper excited to get them. So I'm coloring them with 3 colors of Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens from Kuretake. I'm using Oatmeal, Mocha Brown, and Dark Brown. So I'm working on smooth Bristol cardstock, and I stamped all 3 of them with VersaFine Clair ink in Nocturne, which is my favorite black ink ever. And I'm only showing you how to color one of the bats. They're all done the same way. You just want to start with the dark brown, and then you're going to go to the mocha brown and then blend everything out with the oatmeal. Nothing too crazy here, you guys. It doesn't have to be perfect. We just want to have some highlights and lowlights, some nice shadows for these bats, and just try to keep, you know, the light source kind of, sort of in the same place. But really, who's grading you? Nobody's grading you. Just make the bats look adorable, and that's all that matters. And they're adorable on their own, so you don't need to even go crazy. So I like to use the Strathmore Smooth Bristol. That's my favorite brand of Bristol. So that's what this is. And you can see how the oatmeal just kind of warms everything up, but it makes everything blend really beautifully. Oatmeal is my most used color because it works with everything. If you need to tone down a color, you use oatmeal. If you need to blend something, but you don't want to make it super light, use oatmeal. That is one of the first, actually, that is the first marker I needed to rebuy because I used it up. It's a great color. So I'm going to color that 3rd one. Look at how cute they are, little brown bats. I could have gone with gray or black or make them some funky color like purple, but I really wanted to use brown. I feel like little brown bats are kind of underrepresented. So I'm going to fussy cut. There are coordinating dies for this, but I do not have them. And it doesn't really take too long to fussy cut them. If you don't like cutting super close to the edge, then you can give it a loose fussy cut and leave a white border. But I prefer to have it nice and close to the edge. And you could see that there's some white cardstock showing. We're going to fix that in a minute. I think these are so cute. This is one of my favorite things from Lawn Fawn are these little bats. Seriously. We're going to wind up using the Purrfectly Wicked set in a little while too to make our sentiment. So would you use this for a Halloween card, or would you use this for an everyday card? I'd like to know. I would use it for an everyday card because, you know, bats are good all year. And yeah, they have a cauldron, but, you know, I got cauldrons too. Okay, so now I've got my Faber-Castell Pitt pen. It's got a brush tip and it is black. And we are going to color the edge so that it makes everything look nice and finished. I like to hold it in my left hand and keep the marker at the back of whatever object it is that I'm coloring. So you can see the one on the left there is the one that we did, and the one on the right still had white showing, and it looks so much cleaner. But if you color from the back, then if you slip, which I do often, it'll get on the back of the object that you're coloring and not slip onto the front. So I just grabbed the Purrfectly Wicked stamp set, also from Lawn Fawn, and now I am stamping out the You're So Spell-cial to Me, which is adorable. And I've got that on some black cardstock, and I grabbed some white embossing powder from Imagine, and we're going to heat set that bad boy, and then we're going to apply it to our card. Here we go, heat setting. Do you love to watch embossing powder melt? Because I do. It's hard to see it when, you know, you're working with such small letters and whatnot, but I really enjoy watching it. So now I'm trying to figure out how exactly I'm going to apply the sentiment there, and I'm moving my bats around a little bit to make sure that I have them in a good spot. And I decided that I'm going to just trim all the words down so that they're going to just kind of hang out on the right side of the card in a stacked kind of format. So now I'm going to be struggling with this strip of paper, which I have already cut crooked because I accidentally moved it wrong in my trimmer, but it's okay. It'll be fine. Everything will just be fine. So now I'm figuring out what words I want where, how far over I want to cut it. So I decided to do the You're So on its own, and then Spell-cial for one, and then To Me would be the last. And I think it works out really well. So struggling, trying to make sure I line it up, making sure that it's not going to move while I'm cutting. But that, I tell you what, that guillotine trimmer is just the best thing. I use that bad boy all the time for almost all of my cutting. Almost all. I have like 4 paper trimmers. How many do you have? I feel like a lot of crafters have multiples. You kind of need to, right? So I've got my Barely Arts glue, and I'm going to get those suckers adhered, and then I'm going to move on to my sweet little bats and get them on there. I decided to do the You're So first and then the To Me before I did the Spell-cial, just because then I'd be able to line up that middle word a little bit easier, I thought. I don't know, it just worked out that way. So I've got a couple of empty areas that are just perfect for those baddies, and we're just going to adhere those down. I didn't even add like gemstones or sequins or anything. It just didn't need it. Or I didn't think it needed it. I think it came out really cute the way it is. Look at how sweet they are. So now, of course, I can't leave my card base white very often, so I needed to ink it up. So I grabbed some more of that Twisted Citron Distress Oxide, and I inked the heck out of those edges so that that green would really pop and work well with whatever that goop is that's coming out of that cauldron. Love this color. It is one of my favorite distress colors for sure. How cute is that? Oh, I love it. I can't wait to send this to somebody. And you can mail these in like a business, like a letter envelope, and it'll mail just fine. You know, you don't need extra postage or anything like that like you would with square cards. So that's the card for today, you guys. I hope you liked it. I happen to love it. I think it's so cute. Be sure to visit A Colorful Life Designs. Use my code ALFAN10 to save 10% on your purchase, and I will see you all very, very soon. Be well, stay safe, peace out.